Sarah Rizvi, the Group Editor of the Technology Division at ITP Media Group, and I would like to welcome you to today's webinar on the role of technology in outlining the city of the future. The world has been discussing what a smart city is for so long that maybe many are tired of the question. And while the discussions and debates have continued, cities around the world have been using the term in their own ways, spending time and money to implement projects that have the smart cities label on them. Now, to understand what makes a city smart, what are the sustainability, governance, and cybersecurity implications, and what stakeholders can expect in return from their investments, today I'm joined by Alaa Elshimy, the MD and VP of Huawei Enterprise Business Group, Sergio Maccotta, SVP of SAP Middle East South, Mark Hosking, Head of Emerging Technologies, Red Hat, and Franz Kasparec, Global in Charge of the Digital Infrastructure and Security at Atos. Thank you for joining us today. So, Alaa, starting with you, the smart cities debate has moved from the idea stage to the implementation stage. And the main question here now is a more pragmatic one where we are asking what works, what does not work, and why. So, we start with you explaining to our viewers what makes a city smart and sustainable, and is it possible to align existing services to make them more efficient and effective?
Yeah, sure. Good morning again, and pleasure meeting you all. So basically, Sarah, what you said is a fact. Reality is smart cities are there. We have implemented already more than 200 cities globally as smart cities. And I think the level of implementation varies from one city to another based on the needs and priorities and return of investment, right? So in some cities, you may have a priority for the traffic management, for example. That could be a big issue for some of the cities. And some saving there could make a very big difference to the population and to the city and to the government. In some other cities, this may not be an issue, may not be a problem, and hence you don't need to do that. But you might have other security concerns, for example, or from a sustainability point of view, and you need to have a proper management for the lighting system, right? So different applications will vary from country to another based on the priorities, the needs, and the return of investment. But what I want to say here that it is a fact. It is not a password anymore. It is not quote unquote a dream anymore. It's a reality. From our side, as I mentioned, 200 cities are already implemented. Some of them are in the Middle East, some of them are in Saudi in particular, and some are in Pakistan and other countries. And it is very successful. It is really bringing value. Yeah, in Africa as well. So if you look at it from a security point of view, and when you have an IOC, for example, Intelligent Operations Center, and how you are managing the response to the different emergency situations, right? Facts show that the response to the emergency situations went down in Kenya from 30 minutes to 4 minutes, right? And again, the crime rate went down by almost 80% because people know that there are cameras and there are systems and they will be tracked themselves, their cars, and so on and so forth. So there are the smart city is a big term. You have number of solutions in the menu of that, and based on the need of the city, then you and the return of investment and the priority, then you decide what you want to do first and how to deliver it.
Okay. Now, Franz, would you like to add something here? What makes a city smart and sustainable?
Well, yes, thank you, Sarah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I can only confirm what has already been said. What we see in smart city projects we do is that it is indeed traffic control very strongly that can be supporting public traffic, that can be supporting individual traffic like park space management and such. Avoiding traffic congestion is a huge smart city application, possibly the most important of all. Then another point is safety. Safety as in controlling city lighting, for example. We have done a project in the Netherlands that adapts the length and the intensity of street lighting to crowds in the streets and also to events known and events expected and the situation expected. This is just one example, a very easy, very simple example of enhancing public safety through smart city measures. There could be many more. There is one last point, which is commercial and which hasn't been mentioned yet. I call it geolocation services. Imagine that you can have information on your handheld devices, on your smartphone, in real time, what's happening anywhere. There are ever so often shops, outlets that already introduced it, try to give information to city dwellers, to pedestrians, to tell them there is some specific event, some specific sale happening there or there. And I think that without commercial purposes on a general line, this could also be a very inviting and commercially inviting smart city application.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Franz. So the potential of smart cities is, like it seems, relatively easy to understand, but the practicalities of implementation, they can be daunting. Now, I have a two-part question here for Mark and Sergio. If we can start with you, Mark, can you highlight first the challenges that are imminent with the development of smart cities?
Yeah. Sure. So thank you for the opportunity to come and meet with you today and take part in this discussion. So we think one of the biggest challenges that smart cities are facing is the continued and accelerated rate in terms of what they need to respond to, and the applications and services they need to be delivering. So you've got this massive demand for change and innovation, and at the same time, they have to find ways to manage the existing infrastructure and embrace new platforms in order to keep up with this. And that's not an easy thing to do. So the Red Hat position on this, and it links back to a common theme that I've highlighted throughout, is that the concept of an open hybrid cloud as a platform that embraces multiple silos of technology, from core data centers up into public cloud services, and then out to the edge of the network. This is something that organizations are really going to have to, or smart cities are really going to have to get their heads around and manage in order to create a consistent operational platform from which they can launch their applications and harness the data that the applications need, or the data that's being collected in a cohesive way across all of these platforms. So for us, we would see that as the biggest single challenge that smart cities need to overcome from a platform perspective.
So now the second part of my question, Sergio, it's to you. Can you tell us what type of challenges the urban cities are facing that the smart cities aim to solve?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. We do believe that there are several challenges that the cities of the future have to solve. And by the way, I do believe that the COVID, the current situation, has highlighted the gaps between what is needed and what can be provided from technology even more. So I would highlight three points. First of all, as we know, urbanization will continue to accelerate during the current century. The UN is projecting that 68% of the world population will live in urban areas by 2050. And by the way, more than 60% will already live in urban areas in the next 10 years. And this is creating even more pressure for cities to deliver what we call innovative services, consumer-like, and definitely apply more pressure on the existing infrastructure that has been mentioned from my colleagues before. That's the first point. From the second point, from the other side, the current pandemic and also other unexpected calamities always found a large part of the world unprepared. And this is against the need to efficiently manage emergencies, especially in dense populated areas. And this has widened the gap that there is between rural villages that are far from the infrastructure and the information availability, and cities with definitely they have a more developed infrastructure and healthcare, but still with little capacity to efficiently master the information and predict well in advance to avoid the disruptions. And finally, what we believe that city leaders must foster the opportunities for all the individual and businesses in their communities to be active change participants and not just spectators. They also are confronted, the leaders, with other tough challenges. How, for example, to gain the trust of the citizens, how to deliver health, education, safety, and housing for all, how to empower citizens, businesses to enjoy the creative and prosperous lives. And also how to balance diversity and different needs in an harmonious integration. And I do believe that Dubai has created a great examples for others to follow, how to really execute vision and innovation and to address the challenges of the fast growth and modernization. Now, what I do believe is the next step is to expand the level of collaboration beyond the boundaries and to continue innovating with a purpose and and try to create a world that has no poverty, an healthier planet, and share the examples of a peaceful society. Now, if I boil everything down to what is the IT responsibility, and I do believe that SAP as a global IT leader, it's the first one to have to go into this direction, is to stand for this higher purpose beyond the economic success and to provide the city leaders that are facing the challenges that we have described before with examples, with tools, with innovation ideas in order to help both the private and the public sector organization to reduce the risks that everyday citizens are facing, to achieve regulatory compliance and to use resources in an efficient way. Some examples before concluding. We developed, for example, a contact tracer application in collaboration with Deutsche Telekom to track any contacts in case of a positiveness for the current COVID. And this is something that, based on the massive amount of information, has helped millions of citizens to reduce the risk of the contagious. Here locally, the People of Determination application in collaboration with the Expo 2020, it's another example on how technology can help disadvantages part of our society to enjoy an experience in the same seamless way as any other citizen. Or lastly, we will just announce that in collaboration with Moderna, we are managing the supply chain and helping an immense amount of data to track with the predictability any single vaccine from the labs down to the citizen consumption. So these are simply examples of the challenges that the leaders of smart cities had to face, and they can leverage on the infrastructure, on the information technologies, but also from other examples how to face and respond to the challenges.
Okay, so this establishes what a smart and sustainable city is and what challenges it aims to rid us of. Sergio, I would ask the next question again to you. We know that the introduction of fully integrated data center technologies in city infrastructures and management present serious threats to human rights. Now, would you say that these smart cities come at the cost of data privacy? Is data privacy getting compromised in this race to get smart?
Well, actually, Sarah, before or more than talking about human rights, I would prefer really to talk about privacy risks. as it is difficult to assess about rights when citizen lives are at risk, and this is typical of the cases that we are facing today. Still, though, you're right. The privacy conundrum is today at the center of the modern debate on how to leverage data to better help living and modernization. And this goes without trying to abuse the knowledge for commercial purposes. Data privacy and GDPR shall always be put at the center of any development plans for the smart cities. Ultimately, in any case, it's the people, are the people whose rights could be affected by this technology that should have control over whether and how this new technology are used through meaningful public oversight, consultation, and also with the control. But to be honest with you, I'd like to say that still, despite today, we are still at risk to be more exposed and controlled versus a previous generation. It's undoubtedly true that our style of living is far better than before. And I agree with you, it can be annoying to receive unsolicited calls from property agents trying to sell. But to be honest, I would never withdraw the commodity to shop anything and to have a window on the world data available to me on the ends of my mobile phone. Because everything is information today, and you can do everything in information if properly addressed. And getting back to the concept of smart cities, they are fundamentally about providing a data-centric solution to urban issues. I do believe that as cities collect a larger amount of personal data on residents, often without their knowledge and consent, the right to privacy in public spaces become more and more effectively eroded. Privacy, security, and trust are central for us at SAP Business. We take our obligation to protect responsibility to use the personal information of our customers, of our users, and our employees very seriously. But data protection legislation is also instrumental in building the necessary application protection and to build trust among the users of this application in order to easily accept and not to reject the development of the future. In order to help data availability, consistency, and the security, SAP, for example, was the first IT leading company here in the UAE to invest in build local data centers and disaster recovery in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia. On top, any customer of ours can benefit from an integrated customer data cloud layer that is ensuring the privacy and consistency in a single central repository and governance without fueling duplication and disintegration of the customer data. So you can decide in a single instance what is available to the application, what is visible, and what, on the contrary, has to be kept absolutely as private. Expo 2020, it's a brilliant example on how the SAP Customer Data Cloud and our customer experience application can help managing the entire visitor experience in a personalized way for each one of them. And remember that we are counting them in millions from the back office to the on-site, ensuring that the data security and the GDPR are fully respected. And that's always a must.
Yeah. Now, Alaa, you being an instrumental part of smart city development, going further from this, can you add here what degree of private data will be collected and what this means for the privacy of the citizens of the smart city?
Yeah, sure, Sarah. I think Sergio mentioned the right description, if you want, of how this is managed and should be managed. What I can tell you is there is a classification of the data. and you will not have all the data of the citizens, of course, all the quote unquote enemy data that people wouldn't want others to know about it. That will not be there. I think the key driver there is to take the data that will help the city and will protect the citizens. Actually, talking about privacy and security, it is about having a safe city before having a smart city. This is the key principle in there. So talking about accidents, for example, if one is driving in the street or walking in the street and then someone comes and hit him by the car and run away, right? You will want to get your rights from what's happening, and the police will want to know which car and what is the plate number and where did he go and so on and so forth. Yeah, unless you have the system that can track these cars and you having the unless you have the camera to have the recognize the plate number and to recognize the face and recognize the make and model of the car, and then the camera start to buzz the other camera to say, okay, the car has moved to this direction, and then from one camera to the another to make sure that when the police arrive, he goes or they go or arrive at the exact point where this car has run away or that driver run away. Just as one example, right? So at the end of the day, what the safe cities and smart cities, smart is definitely safe, yeah? Safety goes first. It brings safety and privacy more, in my opinion, to the citizens, and I think it is very important. There's a very famous research. It's called I got nothing to hide. I think that's the name. Either I have nothing to hide or I got nothing to hide, and it's a PhD research around exactly the point you are talking about. I could share it with you after the webinar, and people are like 60-40, yeah, in the world. 60% are saying, I got nothing to hide. Yes, I don't mind if you get my information, my fingerprint, my face recognition and stuff, because it is for my safety, and end of the day, that's good for me. 40% are saying, no, we don't want to share any information. Why should you have my fingerprint, or why should you have my face, and so on and so forth. So this is the debate. Yeah, it's an argument that's going on, and I think it will continue to be there forever. Exactly the same story like the COVID vaccination. Some people are saying, yes, we want to get the vaccine because it will protect us, and some people are saying, no, I don't want to have this in my body and it might harm me. This is normal, I think, in the human life. But what I can assure you is two things. First is smart cities are first safe, and that's very important. Second, the data usually is classified, and the private data that no one should be able to get access to, and only maybe the concerned people with some approvals like the police or whatever it is, only then they will get to that. And of course, that's mainly driven, so technology will deliver to you what you ask. That's mainly driven by the governance of the country or the city where you are delivering the solution. But in my opinion, I don't see it as a big issue. It's a concern, of course, for all of us, I would say. But as far as my quote unquote real private data that I don't want anyone to know about it is protected, then the rest, I have nothing to hide. I'm okay to share that, because end of the day, it is for my own safety and it's for my own benefit as well. The other reality, I think it is going to happen. Yeah, if we want to be pragmatic, this is happening and it is going to happen. Again, exactly, I bought the analogy again. It's like the COVID situation. Everyone is waiting for the vaccine to come. Some people are against it, right? But majority will go and take the vaccine because it's safer for everyone. Same scenario and same argument in there. Yes, privacy is an issue in everything. Yeah, even if you don't have a smart city and you are using your phone, and for every application you're going to any Facebook or WhatsApp or any application, the first thing you signed is privacy statements. Yeah, and if you and there they will say, okay, we'll have access to your photos, to phone numbers, and end of the day you sign. Or what is the other option is that you will not carry a smartphone. Yeah, you can carry maybe a regular phone, and I don't know if it still exists or not, but you will not have the smartphone. So I think the privacy issue will continue to be there forever, in my opinion. That's an argument, two different views on it. Both are respected, but practically and pragmatically, I think the real private data that no one wants anyone to know about it will be protected in the classification of the data, but then the rest is used to the benefit of the security and the value that smart cities and safe cities are bringing to the citizens.
Okay. Thank you, Alaa. So we'll come back to the security and cybersecurity implications in a few minutes. But before that, Franz, you mentioned in one of our chats earlier that it is not just about collection of data, it is also about retention. Can you elaborate on this, please?
Thank you, Sarah. This is indeed a very important point because we have established so far that smart city is all about data privacy. It is very data centered. So privacy plays an important role. And when it comes to privacy, it is, like you say, not only about what data do we collect, but do we keep them? Take, for example, speeding control on roads, on highways. There is something we call section control in Austria. It goes by other names in other countries. There is an entrance camera to a section that establishes a reading of the number plate. There is an exit camera, and the time is measured for the car to take to pass the distance between the two cameras. And if the time is too short, the driver gets a speeding ticket. If the time is not too short, then the license plate readings are immediately discarded. They must be by law. This is, so to say, a governance rule. And I think this is an example of retention that needs to be applied to smart city applications of all sorts. There will be services that require some permanent data, like, for example, those location-based services, which I mentioned. They may require some information about the user. What are their preferences? Are they younger? Are they older? Are they male? Are they female? What shopping interests do they have? Then they will receive information which is tailored to their needs. That's permanent data or semi-permanent. And then there is things like this speeding control, which is purely transient. And between that, there will be a lot of personally identifiable data, the PIDs, as the term is in the law and also in the technical documentation, which has a limited lifetime of, let's say, between a few days and a few years. And there is something else, the so-called right to be forgotten, which is guaranteed to us by the GDPR. Which is the right that the lifetime of data, the retention time of data is terminated prematurely. So we need some sort of governance, we need some sort of legal influence to control how long data is kept in a data-centric application like we have it here in smart cities. We also have our other challenges, of course. All this data collected has a holistic nature. We are connecting different data sources. It doesn't make sense. Smart city wouldn't make sense as a system of functional islands. Smart city needs to be holistic. It's like the Industrial Revolution 4. As some say, meaning that we transition from isolated islands to networked systems. And we, of course, must also take care of things like availability, avoid denial of services and such. But the collection of data and managing its retention times is a central element among all these points.
Coming to you, Mark, Alaa and Franz both touched on data privacy, collection of data, and how smart cities are smart. But when we're talking about challenges, especially in a connected world, the discussion about cybersecurity and the hazards and how safe somebody's private data is, this discussion becomes very important. So, Mark, can you highlight the cybersecurity implications that are associated with connected smart cities, and what's the solution there?
Sure. So yeah, there were some great points raised, Sergio, Alaa, and Franz. And coming back to my opening comments around the challenges that smart cities face, is it's all about data and applications coming together to deliver services to their customers and their citizens. And we are seeing these platforms expand. So you have an increasing footprint where data and applications reside, applications processing the data to either capture or deliver services. And so the threat platform increases. At the same time, the city is trying to become more responsive. So there's increasing demand for services. And so from our perspective, where we are working with customers around the world, governments and cities, to address these challenges, we focus in on things like automation. So what is your governance? And we're seeing governance evolve. So data privacy and policies around how data is handled today is not going to be the same as 2-3 years time. And so how are organizations able to define the policies for compliance to the regulations, and also to define what secure looks like? So what is our security posture? And then be able to automatically measure the systems as they're flying live, in order to identify where the breaches are happening. So where there's a drift in compliance from your security policy to reality on the ground, being able to respond to that in a very dynamic fashion. And that's where we see artificial intelligence starting to play an important role, and machine learning, where data can be captured, collected and processed, patterns can be discovered, threats identified before they actually hit in some situations. And so once the systems are detecting a potential vulnerability, detection is one thing, executing a remediation to plug that hole is another. How do you do that? And coming back to my opening comment there, automation, we think, is now becoming an absolute must-have. You're not going to be able to sustain this manually as these threats evolve and accelerate. So automation is central to it. We also look at the entirety of the platform. Franz made the point about a holistic platform collecting data everywhere. How are you able to define a policy and ensure that it is deployed and executed across the platform? That's not easy to do, and we'll talk about that later on, I think, as we look at what infrastructure and platforms are needed to support that.
Okay, great. So cities can definitely grow smarter with IoT connectivity by leveraging networks of sensors, and we spoke about edge computing, to make urban environments safer, greener, and simpler to govern. Now, coming back to you, Alaa, can you tell us, what does the intelligence of smart cities rely on, and what kind of infrastructure does the city need to support this intelligence?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Sarah. So we have number of challenges in there. Actually, we came up with a model called the digital twin. And we looked at the different building blocks for a reference architecture, if you want, for a smart city. And I think one important point you touched on, and all the colleagues on the webinar as well, when you are connecting, when you are talking about smart city, you will be connecting a lot of devices and people, and you will be connecting everything together, people and devices basically to each other, and you will be talking about millions of devices that you need to connect, right? And every device of these devices are having different operating system, if you want to call it this way, and maybe different interface. And getting all these devices to be connected, yeah, it could be a traffic light, could be your phone, could be your car, could be a helmet someone is wearing, could be anything that you want to connect in a sprinkler in a park, could be any device that you need to connect into the system to have a smart city. And these millions of devices each has its own operating system. So you need to have an interface that can talk the different language of these operating systems, being Android or being Harmony or being iOS or whatever language, to connect all this into one platform to connect you to the cloud. Because end of the day, after you collect this data from these devices, you need to communicate it, send it to the cloud, put it in the data lake, do the processing and analysis of the data, and create intelligence, send it back to take decisions. That's basically the concept. And in there, actually, we created something called the IEF. This is an intelligent fabric, whereby you can connect different devices from different suppliers, different ecosystem, we call it, with different operating system, and then it will translate all of this into one operating system, which is the Harmony, so you can connect to the cloud. And of course, in this case, I'm talking about Huawei Cloud in particular, but of course, the system is open that you can connect to whatever applications from whatever cloud, could be Alibaba or Microsoft or any other cloud, and get the best of the best and integrate that together. So the first part is the intelligent interaction. I call it because these sensors actually they not only sense, but they interact as well. Right? You may have a gate to open or not if the plate number recognition is matched or not matched, right? So you send the decision to the gate to open or not. The second is the intelligent connectivity. Because again, when you have millions of devices and you have different data, you could have video streaming, you could have voice, you could have images, you could have files, you could have whatever you are getting from the edge to the cloud. So you have different connectivity requirements, and in there we expect that you will need to have gigabit everywhere. Right? To really have real smart city and real connectivity, connecting millions of devices, you need to have gigabit everywhere. The second part, it is going to be deterministic, in the sense that you need to have very high level of availability. If you are connecting, I don't know, the power grids of your city, having a smart grid, and you are connecting that into your IOC as part of your smart city to measure the utilities consumption and the availability of the network and so on. And of course, you have schools, you have hospitals, operations are happening in these hospitals. You cannot imagine for the power to go down for a few seconds, right? And if you want to have 4 seconds down time a year, you are talking about maybe 6-7 months availability of this network. And hence, if you are talking about smart grid, you really need to have this available all the time. If you are talking about airports, on average in some airports, you have a flight taking off or landing every minute. And if you want to have the smart allocation for the flights that will land and which parking it will go to, which gate and so on, and the lighting, of course, for these flights, for the taxi taking off and landing. Again, you cannot imagine for these flights to go off for 1 second. This could create a disaster. So these are all different applications which requires very, very high level of availability, and we call this deterministic. The third area, again, in the intelligent connectivity requirements or expectation, and I think Mark also referred to this point, is the hybrid automation. Yeah. So you have the AI, you have the machine learning, you have all the new technology that you need to leverage on to get the best for the city. So these are the requirements if you want that you have or you need to get from the intelligent connectivity, and then you come to the cloud. And the cloud actually is the intelligent hub, if you want. The cloud is in the heart of it. And in there, and I think also, I think it was Franz or Mark talked about it, you will be able, and you need to connect to different clouds. You need to connect to your legacy system. Different departments and different governments are having different applications. Some are legacy, some are home developed, some are new coming maybe from other clouds, some AI industry-specific applications. You need to collect all of these different applications into one platform and have a seamless experience to your customers, right? So that's something the cloud must be able to provide. You need to have the right and the platform, actually we have that for that, is called Roma. The other part which is also very important when you are talking about the AI and talking about the intelligence that you need to create. One of the biggest challenges we have today is the government people know about their industry. The hospitalities know about their services, the traffic department know about their service. Every silo, if you want, of every service and every government know their service very well, but they don't know AI and they don't know the service of the other departments. How do you bridge these silos? And the developer, the AI developer, doesn't know any of these industries, right? So you need to create tweaks and workflows that is a reflection or a translation of these industries and these industry requirements for the AI developers to be able to take that and develop and create algorithm and applications, AI-based applications and machine learning-based application for this industry, which in principle they don't know. Yeah, and that's what we call the art model. And of course, the data, again, having different kinds of data, getting all of that, having it in a data lake to structure the data and put it in the right categories and extract and analyze. That's also a key requirement in there. And the most important on top of that, of course, is the smart application, right? You need to understand what are the pain points and what are the challenging areas of every industry within the same city that you are talking about, or every department, and then you start to create intelligent applications to serve the purpose and fix the pain points of these departments. So that's in a nutshell, if you want, how we look at the structure that you need to have for you to be able to deliver any smart city per se.
Okay. So, Mark, you touched on a little bit on this earlier, but being truly smart is about achieving not just connectivity, but also an infrastructure that is actually affordable, effective, and sustainable. And Alaa just spoke about where the intelligence, what the intelligence of smart cities actually relies on. Now, can you tell our viewers, can you explain to them what kind of infrastructure does the city need to support this intelligence?
Sure. So as I said earlier, we think the infrastructure that is required is this open hybrid cloud. So it's going to be a collection of clouds offering different services, and it's going to be a connection of platforms from centralized data centers out to the edge. So if we think about applications, so two examples. One, you've got a smart traffic application, or self-driving buses, cars, where data is being collected from those vehicles and needs to be processed in almost real time in order for the cars to make intelligent and safe decisions. So to take that data and to push it all the way back into a central data center or up into a third-party cloud is just not feasible. So that infrastructure needs to be able to process that particular application or service at the edge. You might then have, I don't know, a concert or a big exhibition where you've collected a whole lot of data and you want to plan for next year. So you want to take that data, you can offload it somewhere in a cloud, and you've got time to process it in order to retrospectively assess what was the traffic control like for that, how was the public transport. That's not a real-time requirement, and so therefore you can use another platform to deliver that. But the infrastructure that the city will require needs to be hybrid. And there are 2 points to really emphasize for your viewers around that. The first one is, if I haven't made it clear already, I'll say it again. Absolutely, this does not exist without the hybrid cloud, including edge computing. And the second point is that the foundation for edge computing must be open. And by that we mean these cannot be closed and proprietary solutions. Alaa mentioned the ability to accept interfaces from multiple operating systems. Franz mentioned holistic. Sergio mentioned collaboration. And the world of open facilitates that. So we believe that no one technology company or consultancy will have all the answers. Red Hat as a business is based on embracing open source culture and open source software development, where we leverage the wisdom of the crowd. So we want the best ideas to come together to come up with solutions to real world problems. So the innovation we've seen over the last 9-12 months around COVID, no one could have imagined without the crisis being upon us. And that's a great example of where organizations have collaborated to come up with public health offerings, transportation solutions. But in order for that to be leveraged and deliver value back, it has to be based on an open platform. So those are two key points that we would emphasize.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So now my last question to Sergio, and this is actually open to everyone on the panel. Everything comes down to the dollar, the investment, and finally the returns. So Sergio, starting with you, can you elaborate on the level of investment that is required here and what can stakeholders expect in return?
Oh, Sarah, this is a tough topic. So let me just mention, since Franz was discussing a lot about speed control systems, and I'm Italian, I would try to save some investment on speed control in order to let me drive in a sportive way. But jokes apart, this is a big topic. Global spending on smart cities will reach, according to ITC, almost $200 billion in the next 3 years. So it's definitely a lot. Now, smart cities, especially the older one, requires infrastructure modernization in order to embrace whatever has been discussed so far. And this can be definitely a high price tag for any of the cities. But the good point is that not all of the costs shall be borne by the government. There are different means to find a smart city. An alliance approach, for example, it's a creative financing model that can be based on creating partnership, procuring products and services, and providing governance to realize the premise of the smart city. Another option could be working in the direction of public-private partnership. But what I want to highlight is that regardless to the states of the development of the city and to the model that local governments or regulators are adopting, it is important to have a clear and strategic vision of where you want to go. But most important than all, it's also critical to start now, even if at the beginning with small steps. Now, value to citizens, from what I've heard from my colleagues and also from what we are experiencing in the market, it's not under question. It's only the cost and the speed with which you provide this type of value. And Dubai, again, it's an example. Projects that are quicker to implement and offer measurable returns will ensure immediately the buy-in or an earlier buy-in from additional stakeholders that then can decide to engage in more complex, long-term and integrated platform visions in order to provide the full scope of the smart city service. Now, a couple of examples. SAP, for example, has helped cities and government to benefit from artificial intelligence. I heard a lot about data, and definitely we have agreed that the smart city is all about data. We have discussed, and the market has discovered a lot about Internet of Things. But what is important is when you have collected the data, have the systems that are enabling this data in order to take the right decision and provide the right services. So artificial intelligence, machine learning. In Queensland, in the Office of State Revenue, has used artificial intelligence to predict taxpayer behavior. I know that, again, it's a bit of a penny matter, but thanks to machine learning, the office was able to detect with higher accuracy which individuals were not going to pay their taxes and why. And also they arrive to the stretch to an almost personalized action for each of the taxpayers, like, for example, providing a flexible payment plan even before the citizen had to ask for it. Or another couple of examples. In two cantons in Switzerland, they use robotic process automation in order to handle massively increased amount of requests for financial support, and especially due to this current pandemic situation. So while before, for handling the reduced working hours that employees were requesting during the pandemic, they were able to process only 10 requests per month and spend about 25 minutes of process on a single request. Every employee that was in the chain of the approval, they suddenly had to process something like 30,000 requests a month. So there is not even a comparison. And if you don't have a platform of the system that it's helping, you cannot even aspire or dream to reach this level. Intelligent technologies have helped them actually to reduce the time to process one request down to an average of 30 seconds versus the 25 minutes that they were used to do before. So it's not too much a matter of how much investment cities have to spend or government has to spend. It is a matter of how do you collaboratively address the issue, and especially how much the return is, even in areas that sometimes are quite invisible.
Okay. Thank you, Sergio. I think you've covered broadly a lot about investments and their returns. Now, I have only 5 minutes left, but if I can come to Alaa, Franz, and Mark, would you like to quickly add anything to the investment and returns equation?
Yeah, I think Sergio covered in a very comprehensive way all the dimensions of it. The one thing I may add or complement is we cannot look at it only from a cost point of view because there are a lot of services that you can provide, and SMART is about increasing effectiveness, increasing efficiency, reducing costs. So basically, if you look at the project in 3 to 5 years terms, you will find out that you are actually making money. You have a lot of services like smart parking, for example, that you can sell and you can make very good money out of it. So it is not only looked at from a cost point of view. It could be very good source of revenue. Actually, in the projects we have implemented, and because of the safety it was created and the services it was created, it contributed to the increase of the GDP of these cities. So I think it is not a cost center per se, but it is an investment that is worth it and will give the payback.
Okay. Thank you. Franz, would you like to add anything here?
I totally agree with what Alan just said and with what Sergio and Mark said before. I think that we need to ramp up on security, and security, of course, is an investment. All the governance is an investment. But there is the old saying that you don't do security because it would increase functionality or increase revenue, just must do it. It's the price we pay for the technology. It's the price we pay for all the benefits of deploying technology cleanly, securely. And my personal belief, to end on a positive note, is it works. I think if we set aside a certain percentage of all the investments in smart city, in security measures, holistic security, as we said, data-centric security, as we said, security that ensures availability, prevents denial of service and such, then we will have smart city solutions that really allow to reach some benefits.
Okay, thanks, Franz. Mark, anything you would like to add here?
Yeah, so I think the gentlemen on the panel with me have covered all of the kind of investment areas or return where people can see returns across cost reduction around, in some cases, generating revenue, security and compliance, and citizen satisfaction. What I would add is that the areas that we are encouraging customers to explore for investment, one, of course, is what technology and tools, platforms do you need in place to deliver the services that you're looking for. But there are two other areas to consider. The second area is, what are you doing? What investment are you making in optimizing your processes and thinking around the way your processes have to change? That takes time, effort, and money, training as well. So it's definitely needed as the services evolve. And then the last area of investment that we at Red Hat believe passionately about is investing in your people. Thinking, what do you have to do to nurture talent within your organizations to unlock their potential, for them to come up with great new ideas, creative ideas that bring in new ways of doing things, innovating to support smart cities moving forward. So those would be kind of the three areas where we would encourage people to consider their investments.
Thank you. That finishes the discussion for today. Thank you all for your time. A very, very insightful discussion into smart cities, the underlying infrastructure, what technology is driving it, what data privacy really means for smart cities, its citizens, stakeholders. And thank you, all of you, for your time and inputs today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you to you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.